I know people are going to say no. I know they're going to disagree. They're going to immediately reject the idea. But I really want to put out the observation that Borderlands 4 really looks and sounds an awful lot like Destiny. It could be the next Destiny, and not in a rigid sense. I'm not thinking they have like some 10-year live service plan with a living world and they're going to be doing like drip feed content or battle passes. That's not what I'm seeing here. More so in the sense they really seem to be taking a lot of signals from Destiny, and the list of similarities is growing to a degree where I really can't see this any other way. Now, keep in mind, Borderlands would likely approach an ongoing model very differently than how Bungie did with Destiny. So there's not going to be a need for battle passes or any of the tired tropes. Like right now, Destiny 2 Edge of Fate has been criticized rather heavily for being designed around engagement rather than enjoyment. And I don't think that is something that you would have to worry about within Borderlands, and I'll talk about why in a minute. I think they could just do the good old-fashioned content model that brings players back, and you kill new baddies and you get new loot, okay? So what put this on my radar was a tweet from Jaw Raptor, okay? Now, when I read through this, what I want you to do is I want you to keep track of everything that sounds similar to stuff in Destiny. I'm going to go back and kind of commentate and say, all right, listen, this is what I think sounds very similar to Destiny, and I'll see if you agree with us, okay? Now, it's a lengthy tweet, but it's very, very worth reading. So the first thing he highlights is the game consists of 4 large open zones that can be seamlessly explored, so a lot less loading screens than previous entries. He also says that this means there's room for varied activities in the world, like protecting a drone while it's hacking, bosses you can find in the world, and platforming puzzles. He says you can find vault fragments, you combine them into a key, it opens access to a special vault dungeon with a unique boss and rewards. Movement has been expanded. You've got a glide, double jump, dash, even a grappling hook. This is all useful for traversal. That's been sort of highlighted since the very, very first gameplay reveal. There are 4 new Vault Hunters. We know that. We don't need to read that. Thanks to the new license part system, weapons can now combine parts and behaviors from multiple manufacturers in a single item. You can quickly respawn bosses without need. You can use this thing called Moxie's Encore Machine. This is great. It's a huge request from the community if you want to farm a boss for a particular drop. You have a Digi-Runner vehicle that can be summoned anywhere in the world. Grenades have been changed to ordnance, so you can have it be a rocket launcher, a cannon, throwing knives, and these are all now working on a cooldown. And there's a rep kit system or item that is then used to heal yourself mid-combat. Okay, so these are all new things that were revealed by Jaw Raptor in this tweet. Now, this was a sponsored tweet, so seemingly they are doing something in the realm of pushing out new information to let people know what's in the game. All right, Jaw Raptor has a whole video on this as well. We may take a look at that. Now, I'm going to give you the list that I think, man, that sounds an awful lot like Destiny, okay? First, the open zones that you can explore. This really sounds reminiscent to the public spaces and the public zones in Destiny 1 and 2. Not having really loading screens, but you've got these areas that can be explored. So that's number one. Secondly, on top of this, the activities in those open spaces, like protecting a drone while it's hacking, that's like literally one of the most common things you do in Destiny. They've got these bosses. They've got these like sort of like public events that sound like things that we did in Destiny for years. There's also platforming puzzles. If you remember some of the puzzles in places like the Dreadnought and a lot of the other areas like it, that is a very common thing that Destiny did. So just those two at the very beginning have a whole host of similarities to Destiny. This vault fragment thing that you can find, make a key, you go into a dungeon, there's unique bosses, there's a unique reward. That sounds an awful lot like a Strike and a Lost Sector sort of combined. The movement, I mean, this is the one that I think set people off down this trail first. You got to double jump, you got to glide, you got to dash, you got to grapple. And if you've watched the gameplay, it really looks reminiscent of some of what we have seen in Destiny over the years with respect to movement. Little less face tanking, which is something that was always a little bit frustrating in Borderlands. Just kind of stand there and get shot. Not having any lateral agility. Well, that seems to be addressed in the new game. Now, the license part system, okay, sounds an awful lot like random rolls that's consistently going to have new loot. I know you're going to say, now listen, that was something that was in Borderlands in the past. That's not something new to Borderlands? No, but it really allows for constantly adding new loot, new additions, new areas, because the guns can be randomly rolled. You can also have completely new manufacturers maybe come into the fold, or if every manufacturer adds a handful of new parts, a handful of new archetypes, that adds a whole lot of new content and a whole lot of new loot for you to go and get. The Digirunner that you can summon anywhere in the world, it looks and sounds an awful lot like a sparrow, and it dovetails with a more open space design that sounds very reminiscent of Destiny. The grenades. Well, now grenades can be a variety of things. It's more than just a grenade, right? It could be a rocket launcher, it can be ordnance, and it functions on a cooldown, kind of like the grenades in Destiny function on a cooldown. Now, Moxie's Encore machine is a huge request from the Borderlands community, right? Hey, we want to grind a boss. Let us grind the boss, right? Let us keep going back in. You just kind of like respawn the boss. This still, though, is very much intentional loot grind, go get the drop thing. That is something that helps keep engagement going. That's just very adjacent to Destiny. That is something that people did. They would grind a strike, they would grind a nightfall, hoping to get a particular drop. So there were 10 things listed there. 8 of those 10 things sound an awful lot like Destiny. Now, I don't think this is an accident, okay? It could simply be the granddaddy of looter shooters sort of taking ideas from another great looter shooter and saying, okay, why would we not do similar things there? Maybe they're learning. Maybe they're saying, hey, these guys over here did something really good. We should be doing the same thing. It could be more than that. It could be more than just inspiration. They could be laying a foundation for a game that they would like to be ongoing longer than the previous titles. We know 2K, the publisher, they are a big fan of live service games. They could be pushing Gearbox to say, you guys need to structure this game in a way that can be added into the foreseeable future. And listen, I know live service is this huge stigma. People hear it and they're like, oh, they recoil. They don't want more live service. I think Borderlands could nail this format because you could just add new planets, new areas, new themes of enemies, weapons, just to expand and grow the game's experience. Somebody mentioned Diablo Rifts, like the Rift system in Diablo 3 that everybody loves so much. You could literally create like some sort of technology in the lore of the universe where you get transmatted into a random vault, work your way through it, kill a boss, get loot, get out, and just do that over and over again. That'd be a great way to have seasonal, fun, almost eternal content. You could add things like spaces to explore, new public events, vaults, bosses, guns. All these things could be added within the systems that I just read to you, where you've got vault keys and bosses and the licensed part system on the guns. And none of this would have to be structured around what has frustrated people with other live service games. You would not have to create a Borderlands that's built off of engagement. Like, well, we got to keep the player funnel full because that's not the kind of game that Borderlands is. It would be a very content-focused model where those that want more content and more experiences could continue to play. We also know they love adding more characters and more vault hunters, which they could certainly do. That'd be a great way to add to the game without having to sort of reinvent subclasses or add new subclasses like Destiny had to do over the years. That would probably be one of the biggest challenges here, is that you have vault hunters that you would max out, you would have your skill trees all the way full, and essentially that would just become a static part of your character, of your existence. And then you would be essentially just grinding for guns. But that's basically what these games are always about. They're becoming about the guns. Like, the late stage grind for most people in these games is, I want to go get the best gun, I want to go get the best loot, okay? You would, though, I think, maybe start to feel like, man, we really need another player archetype, another vault hunter archetype, and that would be one of the dilemmas of an ongoing model for a game like Borderlands 4. So, I'm actually curious what people think about this, because if you actually made it this far in the discussion, I'm kind of curious what chat's going to say here. Like, D2 engagement grind is straight BS. Borderlands has always hooked me with the looter shooter aspect, and it values my time as a gamer. I think Borderlands could avoid all of those tropes. It does not have to be this engagement-focused game where, like, yeah, you absolutely have to stay in the game. There's FOMO. There's events that you might... Now, events can be still in the game, like fun Christmas events, holiday events, things like that. I think that's fine to have limited time events. But the primary thrust of the content would not need to be Well, we need to motivate engagement. We need people to keep coming back. We need people to stay in the game for forever. I watched numerous videos about Destiny 2 Edge of Fate, and that was the primary source of criticism. Even before I was no longer playing Destiny. The last time I remember wanting to like quit an activity, it was some activity where like I was going into a lost sector and I was grinding for some, ingredient that just wouldn't drop. And it literally felt like this is designed to be withholding so that I just keep playing. I don't think you would ever need to do that in a game like Borderlands. The way they've structured the bosses, as an example, the way they've spoken about their exotics or their legendaries, like they're going to be dropping less often, while you're swimming in a sea of like randomly rolled purples. So as it stands, I think this game has way more in common with Destiny than I originally thought, and it could end up being a really, really good, for many people, like a Destiny replacement. Now, I'm never going to argue that a game can kill Destiny or that, this is the Destiny killer. I think that's probably to a game's peril to start directly comparing itself to Destiny. I think, Bungie's doing a bang-up job hurting Destiny all on their own over the years. They don't need any help. But I don't think this game is necessarily going to be the Destiny replacement in that regard. But it certainly could be a nice sort of adjacent pivot for a lot of players that are sort of tired of Destiny and they just want another great game to chase loot in. And Borderlands 4 could do that in a way that is ongoing far beyond just a year or two. I could see this game adding content 3, 4, and 5 years from now in a healthy way that players enjoy and is good for the franchise and the company. So I want to know what you think. You can leave a comment. Make sure you're here for live shows and discussions as well, because I think topics like this are great to discuss.